everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Fantasy News. That's not the proper intro. Crap. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Fantasy News. I am your disheveled goblin host, Daniel Green, and today we have a light little sneaky snack of fantasy news to go ahead and get on into. So let's go ahead and start it off with an update from yesterday's React video I did. I'm not normally a React YouTuber. It was just such a long, big ballad of a story. I felt it needed more than the typical 5 to 7 minutes that stories are able to get here in fantasy news at most. So I decided to do my full-on reaction to Sharon J. Zhao's amazing coverage of it. So if you'd like to go ahead and check that out, the full story is of course linked down below. Last minute 6:30 a.m. retake for covering this story because there's been another major update, and I also realized I didn't explain exactly what happened in this situation when I first covered it, and I don't want to make you go watch that full 20-minute video. Sorry. Basically, author Cait Corrain was caught making one-star reviews of a bunch of her peers, mainly focusing on people of color, and has immediately started just blaming and creating fake evidence that no one was really buying. Author Sharon J. Zhao did a really wonderful job of giving opportunities for Cait to correct her mistakes, none of which were taken, and now, as a result of basically everyone knowing what really happened, even though the author hadn't until this point admitted what they were doing, Del Rey, their publisher, has dropped them, and someone who had a really promising career as a writer in front of them has totally lost that chance. But now, as of, I don't know what time exactly, but I'm talking now, it's 6:30 a.m., Cait Corrain has finally come forward on Twitter and fully copped to what they did, though go into this apology with low expectations, just looking at the number of likes versus quote tweets. Boiling it down, the apology blames a mixture of a mental breakdown, substance abuse, and new medication for what they did, as well as deep insecurities, and the reaction to that is kind of exactly what you'd say. Many people saying things along the lines of medication doesn't make you racist, and this just feels like the Roseanne Barr defense. The internet is bloodthirsty though, and I personally don't like to lean too much into that. My own personal hope is, yeah, this person does come out with a better apology. They actually do grow and change, and we all move on from this really having learned some lessons about not letting jealousy take the wheel. That's the final thoughts on that. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and move on into the cover reveals for today. And the first of these is actually going to be for the audiobook of Transmuted by Eve Harms, read by Arden Hughes, with cover art by Sadie Bees. Why did this specifically catch my eyes? It strikes me as a little bit like Reanimator. I don't know, there's something in this that makes me think of Reanimator for, I think, an obvious reason, and I like it. And then next up, we actually had a cover reveal from Tor, who announced Space Opera's cover, featuring 15 stories from authors including Yuhan Lee, Charlie Jane Anders, Becky Chambers, and Ann Leckie, and edited by Jonathan Strahan. Space Opera will be hitting shelves August of 2024. And then finally, we got the UK cover for Adrian Tchaikovsky's Service Model, set to be released June 6 of 2024. This book is described as the Murderbot Diaries meets In the Lives of Puppets, in a delightfully humorous tale of robotic murder, rebellion, and belonging, from Hugo Award-winning author Adrian Tchaikovsky. And in the final beat of book news here today, we also had the Goodreads Choice winners announced, and they include the likes of Yellowface by R.F. Kuang winning the fiction category, Holly by Stephen King winning the horror category, Hell Bent by Lee Bardugo pushing out Sanderson's Tress of the Emerald Sea for the #1 spot, Fourth Wing, which I did in a first and last I highly recommend you check on out, winning the romantasy category, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross taking home the award for Young Adult Fantasy, and In the Lives of Puppets winning the Science Fiction Award. Oh, you didn't know?
No!
Yeah, Kayla...
So good! It's so good, I swear!
Well, Kayla is very happy that Divine Rivals won the Young Adult Fantasy Award. That was adorable. If you'd want to check out the full list of like who came in what place for this popularity contest of literature, link in the description down below. But now, a quick word from today's sponsor before the Gaming Award winners. But first, I would like to give a big thank you to today's sponsor, my publisher, Wraithmarked Creative. After over 3 years of waiting, Bryce O'Connor is finally bringing his beloved Stormweaver series to Kickstarter to get the full Wraithmarked treatment. Gee, I wonder how Bryce managed to snag that deal. At $35 each plus shipping and handling, both Iron Prince and Fire and Song books 1 and 2 in the series are available for purchase, with every hardcover coming hand-signed by Bryce himself. And as someone who just had to do 9,000 signatures for Wraithmark Creative, feels good that Bryce is going to be getting a little bit of his own medicine. There are even limited edged editions available because Bryce loves his edging, which feature hand numbering colored page edges and several other upgrades to the book if that interests you. Stormweaver is literally one of the best reviewed series ever. Bryce, I know you're consciously doing it now, and that's hilarious. Although, admittedly, it does hold a 4.8 out of 5 stars on Amazon and a 4.6 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. They are also very girthy books, making these books not only a very fun addition to your shelves, but also a long journey to read if that interests you. So if you'd like to check out my publisher's book Stormweaver, which is a ton of fun, go ahead and check the description down below, and doing so you'll not only be supporting an indie author, but the channel here as well. Back to the video. Now you probably know by now that the 2023 Gaming Awards named Baldur's Gate 3 the best game of the year. An award I agree with. It's my new favorite game of all time. I'm still going to keep saying that. People have told me it's recency bias. No, you don't understand. But arguably Alan Wake 2 had just a notable night, taking home many awards, including Best Art Direction, Best Narrative, Best Game Direction, and several more. So congratulations to that team too. Now I'm very sad to cover here today that David Drake, the author of many well-known fantasy series, has passed away. On December 10th, his website was updated to say, "I'm very sad to report that Dave has peacefully passed away." If you would like to check out any of this author's series, they include the likes of Hammers Slammers, RCN, Time of Heroes, the Citizen series, Books of the Elements, the General series, and the Belisara series. Now, with no real good transition away from that, I'm gonna go ahead and jump on into the quickie news, which I'm gonna start with some casting news for the season 2 of The Last of Us over at HBO Max. It has been confirmed that Caitlin Dever will be taking on the role of Abby. And it's really funny, I loved season 1 of this show, but as excited I am about season 2, I'm also like equally curious what people's reaction will be to a, no matter where you fall on this side of the argument, admittedly controversial story within the gaming community, whether they're going to tweak it at all or stay fairly true to it. I mean, they took creative liberties in season 1, so I'm not really sure, and I'm absolutely going to be sitting my booty in the chair day 1 when it drops on HBO Max. And in a last minute fantasy news update, Blue-Eyed Samurai season 2 has officially been confirmed over at Netflix. If you want to see my full thoughts review, I released one over the weekend and it is banging! And I specifically mentioned that review how like over the last few weeks the creators of Blue-Eyed Samurai have been like really trying to make sure they get a season 2. It's happening, and I am thrilled. As a big fan of season 1, just watch it. Watch my review, then watch it, then watch the spoiler part of my review. Now, if you're a fan of some of the weirder, more alternative interpretations of the label of fantasy in cinema recently, you'll probably be interested to know that A24 has signed an agreement to stream exclusively on HBO Max, including Priscilla and the Iron Claw. This comes after the studio's original agreement with Paramount expired earlier this year, and depending on where you're located in the world, A24 films have been available in various streaming platforms. But it looks like this is Discovery/HBO's big move to try and grab up a very, very valuable asset currently in the ongoing streaming wars. I find myself like once a month kind of going through the list of streaming services I'm subscribed to and wondering if I could just pull one out for a couple months and not notice. But HBO Max buying up things like A24, it adds it more and more into that category for me of just never gonna get rid of. Because at least once a month, I wanna sit down and watch at least a A24 movie or a Ghibli movie or many of the other like strong staples of modern cinema HBO Max is trying to bring within their stable. Yes, they are also very well known for high quality original series, but I'm continually impressed how good of a job HBO has done at maintaining its prestige type label during the day and age of streaming, where so many of the services are just gargling up trash, admittedly like trash, even in their own marketing meetings they talk about it that way, in an attempt to get a hit show in one way or another. I don't know why, but in my mind, I affiliate HBO Max and Apple for having the biggest overlap in like brand appearance to the wider audience, and HBO Max is kind of winning out and being that upper echelon end of streaming, which isn't even like really a thing, but they maintain it to feel like a thing. But while we're covering this streaming news, there's one last thing I'm not smart enough to give too deep of thoughts on, but it's at least a story that certainly caught my eye and I think is worth keeping on your radar as well. Because right now the entertainment sector is largely uniting to oppose a European law that would ban geo-blocking. Of course, this would only affect the European Union and the countries within it, and there's some arguments going back and forth of whether or not this is a good or a bad thing. This is kind of the tail end of a larger argument that's been going on for a while though, because all the way back in 2018, the European Union came together to largely already get rid of geo-blocking for digital content, but audiovisual content was not originally included in those laws. This is just now trying to finally envelop it and seeing as a way of kind of equalizing the market within the European Union. But the studios coming out against this are claiming it would disincentivize the streaming services or studios in general from making content from less valuable markets. The article I'm referencing kind of summing up the larger arguments from the studios saying, disturbing the model by banning geo-blocking would, industry representatives claim, sharply reduce the value of most European content, reducing the incentive to invest in work from less widely spoken local languages or in content with less obvious multi-territory appeal. I am reducing down an article that was covering a complex issue that spanned quite the long period of time. I don't know whether or not when they vote on this on December 13th it will pass, but this is the kind of argument that could have real world ramifications for your actual consuming streaming habits for the fantasy sci-fi genres we love. So I'm going to keep an eye on it and keep you posted because it's probably, like, of all the stories we've covered today, the one that's most likely to actually like affect your daily life at some point. But before we end the fantasy news, let's go ahead and give some self-pub promo love to an author from within the Goblin Horde. And for this month's indie pub promo from an author within the Goblin Horde, we have The Crew, Book 1 in the God Dust Saga, written by Sadir S. Samir, pitched as Deadpool meets Kings of the Wild. This ain't a job for the good guys. Varcade fled to the desert of Hara to escape his past as an educator, a member of an order of zealot warrior monks that aim to shape the world according to their sacred teachings by force. Varcade makes his living as a reckless sword for hire, caring only about himself, until his self-centered lifestyle is turned on its head when he is contracted to recruit a misfit team of unruly assassins and take out the mighty Bone Lord of a Crab. That's the only way I can think to say that.
A crab. A crab.
A crab. But this has been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace!